Hey everybody, this is Jared.
And this is Brandon.
And we are back again. Today, we're going to be doing something that kind of falls in line with the last video we made 8 years ago.
It was something.
Go ahead, Brandon, explain what we're doing.
Well, this is something we had planned to do back last fall. It just got off track. We didn't have a chance to actually get to it. We had done a commentary on Trial of the Incredible Hulk. That was the second Incredible Hulk reunion movie from the 80s. And it's one of our old favorites. Of course, it's got Daredevil in it.
Your YouTube channel is on fire when you get to do a commentary over a 30-year-old reunion, second TV reunion
telefilm,
special. Yeah, the telefilm.
But The Incredible Hulk, obviously Marvel's biggest TV success, back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
And, they tried to emulate it. There were several attempts at doing other television shows. Only one actually went to series for a brief while, Spider-Man, of course. But then there were two Captain America pilots, two attempts at launching a TV series, and we'll hopefully get to those one of these days. We got a lot to say about those.
I think it's important to note the kind of situation Marvel is in at this time, because just to keep the company afloat, they're optioning out their properties. It almost seems at random sometimes.
Yeah,
all the time. Different TV distributors, different producers. You just never know. And as a kid, I remember, when there was no internet in the early 90s, you were just stumbling upon this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
I can't even remember how I found out that there was a Doctor Strange movie.
Well, I've seen it. It was my dad had the original videotape release, which he was a big Doctor Strange. It was more that he was a big Defenders fan back in the day, so he picked it up. So I've seen it, but it's been more than 20 years now, so I can't hardly tell you a thing about it. I remember liking it enough to watch all the way through it, I guess, so that's something.
Well, today the reason we're here is because we're going to see if it's possible to watch it all the way through once again. Yeah. Recently, there was a re-release in anticipation of a certain Marvel movie. There was a re-release of the old 70s film. This is the first official DVD release that's ever received that I know of. And it did have an official VHS release, though, right?
Two different ones with two different sets of cover art.
So the movie stars Peter Hooten, or Hooten, however you want to say it. He sounds like an owl man and not Owlman from
Watchmen, or from Earth 3. Owlman, Batman's counterpart.
Yeah, but then there's Jessica Walters from Arrested Development, of course, and numerous soap operas.
There's some all-star comic book voice talent in it too. The Ancient One is voiced by Michael Ansara, classic character actor who you will also know as the voice of Mr. Freeze in Batman animated series and New Adventures.
Didn't he pass away just a little while back?
Just a few years ago.
Yeah.
And then also Ted Cassidy, famous as Lurch in the Addams Family, who is also the voice of Galactus and many other characters in the old 60s Hanna-Barbera Fantastic Four.
Yeah, that is right.
He's the voice of the demon in the film, who has a funny name. I just can't remember what it is.
Brandon's seen this a long time ago when he was a kid. I think, I might have seen it in a TV Guide article one time about old Marvel movies.
They would show it on the Mighty Marvel Movie Marathon on Sci-Fi, although not nearly as much.
Yeah. And that's my exposure to all the other TV shows too, like Spider-Man and Hulk and all that. So I'm just curious. I've never seen this Doctor Strange film at all, and I just ordered it just so that we could pretty much do this video
as a goof.
Just to watch it. I am curious if it's going to be. I'm not even concerned if it's going to be comic book accurate. I mean, that's out the window, I would say.
Yeah,
I'm just concerned. I'm just wondering if it's even going to be entertaining or like you can set through it, because so many of these telefilms you couldn't set through.
Yeah, that first Captain America TV movie, you just can't hardly watch it.
Hey, Death Too Soon is all right, though.
Yeah, it is.
Like, really all right.
Well, we know that's because of Sir Christopher Lee.
We'll do that one in another video. Yeah. It's looking good.
Yeah, we'll run through the first one real quick, and then we'll get to Death Too Soon.
Yeah, we'll get to Death Too Soon.
But all right, well, folks, wish us luck, and we'll be back with you, and we'll be back with you in a matter of seconds.
That's
but for
right.
us, it'll be
for
a
us,
couple hours.
it's going to be an eternity, literal eternity.
There will be at least 6 times we pause the movie to go get a snack or go to the bathroom.
Who knows if we'll get through it in one day? We're starting at like 3. Who knows? There'll
be a lot of just looking at our phones during.
That's right. I imagine I'm really going to get caught up on Facebook during this time.
Exactly. But
all right, guys.
Bear with us. We will let you know.
All right, we've made it back.
Yes, with our review of a delicious ice cream cake from Dairy Queen.
Absolutely.
It was terrific. No, not really. We're here to talk about the end of Doctor Strange.
The ice cream cake was good.
The ice cream cake was, yeah, true.
It really was. It was great. And I had 2 pieces.
Yeah, we had about 20 minutes of Doctor Strange left.
Yeah, something like that.
And
25
so
minutes.
we really just stepped back in for the finale, and it had promise. I mean, you with these things, you always have to understand that it's TV.
And that it was 1978.
Yeah,
which is something you really have to understand.
Exactly. So with all that in mind, it really was impressive in its own way, but still sort of kept that same boring tone, sort of same boring pace.
To backtrack a little bit, the movie itself, I had some concerns with it from the get-go. My number one thing is, okay, it's going to be poorly paced and a little boring. And sure enough, I was right on both counts. Yeah, it was very poorly paced. It was kind of boring. But the deal is that no matter what about all these complaints about kind of the pacing and stuff, like I said, I fell asleep about halfway through for a few minutes and things. Regardless of all of that, my biggest problem, and usually I'm not this guy, but my biggest problem is they altered certain things about Doctor Strange that sort of made it not Doctor Strange anymore.
Yeah, very fundamental ideas about the character were just, thrown out for really nonsense.
For no reason.
Things that didn't have to be changed, like for any reason, for budgetary concerns or anything like that,
Well, I hear everybody always hark on the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man series, which was, 78 as well?
Yeah, 77, 78.
Yeah, 77, 78. And everybody's always like, there were no supervillains in it. You morons. Where do you think they were going to get the money to do all those supervillains? I mean, they didn't really have anything like that. They were spending all their money on, big, set pieces where you climb buildings, which were very publicly, promoted, stunt pieces. And so it had all these other things going for it. But to me, that series really got the spirit of the character right. And yes, they changed. They, just like Doctor Strange, they alter some very fundamental things about his origin. But at least the spirit of the character was right.
It is, yeah. And the look and, everything and the basics,
Well, you can't complain about the look because it's right on.
I always love that show. I mean, we talked about this growing up, and that's something I still can't believe we don't have on home video. But I suppose there's too much money on the line.
There is a legal hang-up somewhere, and I bet Sony is being super uncooperative.
I would guarantee it, yeah. Sony and now Marvel Studios proper. But, just... you can only strip so much away from a character like that before you start to question, well, who is this really Doctor Strange?
Well, let's go over what actually got stripped away, because I was shocked by all the changes they made. I think you were already privy to some of these, and I didn't really know.
Well, to begin with, he's studying psychiatric medicine, to begin with. He is a psychiatric doctor, resident in a hospital, so, there's that. Not a huge departure, I mean, you could almost, understand that, except that that takes away the element of, his injury, his personal injury that leads to his, mystical transformation.
To me, Doctor Strange's everything has to do with the origin. I mean, really, if he isn't like the cocky doctor that thinks he's so great and then loses his hands, he just isn't Doctor Strange anymore.
Yeah. And
that's something that the Marvel Studios film just absolutely knocked out of the park. Like, they hit it so hard and so right.
I kind of liked Cumberbatch's performance as the pre-accident Doctor Strange more than, it's just, it was out of character for him, so I thought that was really good.
I did enjoy seeing him play an absolute dirtbag. Yeah. That was really fun.
After I didn't enjoy seeing him play Khan so much.
He was great. Anyway, though, so here's the thing, is that not only do they change that, but then there is no injury. There is no, turnaround.
He was chosen to be Doctor Strange because he was a good guy who loved people.
and there's all this weird, vague backstory about how his dad knew what pretty much was the Ancient One. I think his name is Linmer?
It's Merlin.
Linmer.
Yeah. The character is it's alluded to be Merlin, who's just still alive after so many hundreds of years. Well, because the villain's Morgan Le Fay from Arthurian Legend, Arthur's half-sister. There's that. It strips away any sort of comic book. Although it does have supporting characters. Wong is in the film.
Yeah, that was actually pretty surprising.
Pretty cool. And there's a voice at the end that's supposed to be the real Ancient One, but that's Michael Ansara, like we talked about before, Mr. Freeze.
So you go through all this boring first third of the movie. That's just impossible to try and set through and and try to stay awake. I couldn't. And finally, all this stuff starts happening where he's like mystically awakened, and he goes into a little bit of training, I guess.
Yeah, visits the astral.
This is kind of the part where I was going in and out of awakeness, so I'm not sure how lucid I was during this part. But so all that's done, everything's fine, and then you get the strange climax moment. Yeah, it was strange, not in a good way either. Where he goes into this dream with Morgan Le Fay. And it's one of those crazy things that like a filmmaker of the 70s and early 80s would put in, where they just like lose all sense whatsoever, and they're in this like dream state, and all of a sudden she's like totally in love with Morgan Le Fay.
Yeah, she's just there to seduce him.
It's ridiculous.
Which she makes clear to like her master, like the big demon.
Yeah,
that's what she's trying to do. He's
like falling for it, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Like he really, unless it's supposed to be that he's like going along with it, but I really don't think that's it. That's not how Hooten played it.
No, I don't think
he played it as like a bamboozled idiot that just gets down there. You're so bad after all. You're gorgeous. And by the way, everything that Hooten says in the movie, in an extreme close-up, mind you, the most awkward close-ups imaginable, his mouth is agape. And as the camera sort of zooms in slightly, why, blah, blah, blah. Ha! And blah, blah, blah. The man enunciates everything by giving emphasis to the last syllable of every final word. And it becomes really weird. And by the way, during this dream sequence at the end, which is like the only Doctor Strange like action beat, they put this filter over the footage.
Yeah, it makes it look like BBC, like videotape
late
production.
70s BBC production, which is something we always had on BBC during that time. Is our video production just looked so much better.
Yeah,
because they were using this much worse standard of stuff, and plus it didn't translate right to our TVs anyway, because we weren't using the same kind of broadcast signal.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, it just looks like garbage, and they actually had some pretty nice little sets.
Some nice little set.
That's something I'll compliment them on.
And then he gets a sort of Doctor Strange costume for the action finale that Morgan Le Fay gives him, like ceremonial robes.
Morgan Le Fay gives him an evil outfit, I suppose.
Yeah.
Which to me was a pretty good facsimile of the Doctor Strange costume. I mean, it's not bad.
No. And then he resists the temptation, and Morgan Le Fay fails. Yeah, the literal and figurative temptation. And then he gets back to Earth, and then Merlin, whoever goes through the transmutation process.
Yeah, he has to do the transmutation.
Transmutation, and then he gets
becoming a Ninja Turtle.
Yeah, he gets his what I assume would have been the regular series costume, which is much worse than the dream
it's
costume. It's
horrifyingly awful. I'm gonna put a picture of that on the screen right now. Look at this.
Blue pants,
a
purple shirt, and a yellow cape. He looks like I don't even know what to compare him to.
He looks like like the leader of a flower child parade.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, just horrible. Just the absolute worst. Who looked at the comics and decided that that's what Doctor Strange should look like?
And it's like there's all those old like one-off issues of like Superman or World's Finest from the 60s where he's like, I'm going to wear a new costume and it's something like, it looks exactly like that,
Okay, one can only hope that would have been like only the pilot outfit, but here's the thing, I'm positive it wouldn't have been. That would have been for sure. Yeah. Like the whole show would have been just like that. And I don't know. The ending is really the wrap up is way too long. Like it says what it needs to say, and then they're busy wrapping everything up. And Doctor Strange is trying to put the moves on that lady who conveniently doesn't remember anything about the whole adventure. It's just silly.
It's just stupid.
It's there's a reason this movie was pretty well forgotten to the sands of time. I mean, it's just not very good.
No, it's very very forgettable. We always try to accentuate the positives in all these things, and there's not.
Look at any of our reviews.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just not much positive to say here.
It's just not like Doctor Strange.
No,
like it is a magician psychiatrist.
And I again, like I can't fault it completely for that. Like, the Incredible Hulk TV series actually isn't very much like the comic books. I mean, when you get right down to it, and every like detail of the origin story and
but the character spiritually relations. It is though.
Exactly.
Like it's still the exact same thing, sort of like spiritually, And
so there's that. But
let me just bring up something kind of off the beaten path here for a second. You notice that in all of these Marvel adaptations, they always remove the central figure or the central like tragic sacrifice element or crux to all the origin stories.
Yeah.
Let's look at Spider-Man. No Uncle Ben, right? Totally removed. Let's look at Doctor Strange. Okay, no life-changing injury.
Yeah.
No loss of his hands. And let's look at the Incredible Hulk.
Yeah, he's not trying to rescue somebody
Nope.
He's not trying to rescue, Rick Jones from getting killed
Jones.
on the field. He's doing it for selfish reasons.
That's right. So
and then Captain America, those pilots, he's not
even Captain America.
Yeah, there's no he's not volunteering to be experimented on, to help save his country. He's just
So we can say that not a one of them during that time period gets it right, except, and let's dig real deep here, except those Hulk TV movies with Thor and with Daredevil, they actually get those origins correct. Yeah. I mean, it's a funny thing to say, but it's Daredevil much more than Thor. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty good.
It's funny. It is funny that their idea of Thor actually reflects the modern comic books better than it did Thor at the time.
Yeah, that's actually right. Especially if you look at the Jane Foster, Thor and all that
idea. So that's so maybe they're ahead of the game.
Yeah, maybe they're ahead of the game. But let's just say Daredevil for sure. Gets it to a T. It's just right. Yeah. Even though it's just explained, it's the most well-directed scene in the whole film too. I mean, it's terrific.
In all of Marvel television. Prior to Daredevil 2015.
Great. So you can see why we did a feature-length commentary on Trial, because we legitimately believe it's a good movie.
Oh yeah,
and it is. And I feel like we sort of needed to do this Doctor Strange thing, which I had never seen it. I didn't know.
Yeah,
but in
as
a way,
juxtaposition.
We don't just think anything is good.
No,
I mean,
not
there's
at all.
such a thing as bad, and Doctor Strange 1978 is it. It's horrible.
What would the DC equivalent to Doctor Strange 78 be?
Ooh, I think okay, let's see. I would say that it was the Super Friends live action things that Hanna-Barbera produced.
The roasts, yeah.
The roasts.
I think
but those are actually supposed to be stupid.
Yeah,
and
they're supposed
funny.
To be goofy and nonsense.
So I'm not okay. And then you would say okay, if you're looking at the time period, you would want to say, oh, Wonder Woman is the equivalent. But the difference is that's good.
Yeah,
that's
and very true to the character.
Yeah, it's very true to the character, even going as far as there being a World War II, era
season.
So, is there an equivalent?
I guess for comparison's sake, I mean, I would compare it to something like Steel or Catwoman. I guess
where they totally change up.
Yeah.
See, I thought you meant era equivalent.
Yeah.
I see what you mean though. Absolutely, there's these horrible adaptations that kind of throw out the central part of the character. I think Steel is a really good comparison from what I know of it. I've actually never sat down and watched all of Steel. I'm not going to pretend like I have.
You should. I mean, I know we said some things are just bad, but it's worth
okay.
Judd Nelson's the bad guy in it.
All of this stuff deserves to be seen once. All right, and everybody needs to see it just to see if you call yourself a comic book fan.
Well, let's put some of these things back into context. Steel or Doctor Strange 78 or whatever it might be. Trial of the Incredible Hulk. Again, and we touched on this in the Incredible Hulk commentary. There was a time, and people say this frequently, but we'll reiterate it. There was no comic book cinematic universe. There weren't a dozen shows on TV, all this time ago. So if you were a fan, if you were a kid like us who was reading comic books or interested in superheroes and comic books, you were trying desperately to find anything that you possibly could that was in that same vein, and so any adaptation at all was something that was going to pique your interest.
As a matter of fact, it's funny we should say this, but I'll be totally honest with you. I think I've had a recollection as to where I remember seeing something about Doctor Strange for the very first time, and I think I was on the right track earlier when I remembered something about TV Guide. Every week I would peruse TV Guide and try to look up any kind of comic book show or movie that was going to be aired. I just did. And one week, I believe I saw Doctor Strange in a listing and was fascinated that it was on there. So I think that might have been the first time I was given awareness about it. I think the Sci-Fi was showing it or something one time. I just thought that was a funny thing to recollect, but it's true.
Oh yeah. Well, it's those things could pop up like that. Well, there's all that Mandela syndrome stuff where people swear that they saw they swear they saw the Star Wars holiday special, after it was supposed to have aired and all this stuff. So.
And one more thing about Doctor Strange, so that we don't get too far off track. The Eye of Agamotto wasn't even in it.
It's the ring of Agamotto.
It's the ring. And he's got this ring, and it looks ridiculous with him shooting this laser out of this ring to hit Morgan Le Fay. By the way, hardly any action at all in it. Not that that's a huge problem with Doctor Strange. Yeah, there wasn't hardly any magic.
If the drama was good, it wouldn't really matter because Doctor Strange has got to be fairly cerebral anyway. But Just boring. There's nothing.
Yeah, it was dumb. Things I liked Morgan Le Fay a lot. I like Jessica Walters a lot. Not only is she a super beautiful lady, and still is.
Yeah.
If you watched Arrested Development, she is just a super lady. But
yeah, she's kind of ageless in real life.
She really is. She really is. But I just really liked her performance. I think she had a blast doing it.
I'm sure.
I would have loved to have continued seeing her. I mean, honestly, Peter Hooten was a drag as Doctor Strange, in my opinion. I mean, just the most generic pretty boy they could find.
Yeah. He looks okay for the part.
Yeah, he looked fine for it.
That's about it.
But that was it. Something else I really liked was the crazy... I don't know if it was a puppet or stop motion, the crazy demon thing.
Yeah,
Morgan Le Fay
Morgan's master. I guess it was a puppet. I like that. Yeah, it's really unsettling and sort of an '80s Jim Henson way. You know,
I sort of like their cheap Doctor Who set from the underworld or whatever that they used. Yeah. You know, with Doctor Strange going to. I liked all that.
I like that stuff a lot too. That's what the whole show could have been.
Yeah, that's what it should have been.
I'll tell you what the demon, the master character reminds me of, I guess, more than anything, is like a Sid and Marty Croft kind of.
Yeah.
Well, he could have been a bad guy in Land of the Lost. Maybe it was. We've never seen it. I don't know.
And I will say this, and we kept noticing it all throughout, but the kind of 70s masculinity that they were trying to project and this sexist kind of vibe of the show is really just sort of disgusting.
It is, yeah. Doctor Strange is really misogynistic.
He's macking on all of his nurses and all this, and it's just disgusting. Yeah. Like, usually I'm not the guy to comment on any of that. I'm not usually the one.
Yeah,
but this time
this is really
this is dumb. Can't take it seriously. I don't know. If you were a Doctor Strange fan back then, and I guess, hardly any of the other heroes at that point had gotten adaptations, I don't know, I guess you would have gotten like a thrill out of even hearing them mention Doctor Strange, show him on TV. But I'm telling you, he just was not the character that you liked in the first place.
Not at all, unfortunately. So, what can we say? The music's good.
Oh, yeah, the music was terrific.
The only blanket positive thing I can say is that the music's, incredible. Yep. So...
That is a product of its time. Which, maybe we love synth music from the 70s and 80s.
Maybe La La Land Records will put out a nice 2-disc edition of the Doctor Strange TV movie soundtrack.
The Hooten edition. By the way, there was a statue of an owl on Hooten's desk, and there's also a statue of an owl on the Lindmer's desk guy. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the same exact statue too.
Pretty, if not very close.
So why on earth? Is it a hoot joke? Is it
I guess.
Hootner joke?
Hoot.
Let me tell you what wasn't a hoot. Doctor Strange 78.
Yeah.
It was a pain to set through. Do yourself a favor. Unless you're huge Marvel fanboys like us, just skip it.
Yeah. That's it.
Just skip it.
No recommendations. Well, we're going to do you one better. We're going to go ahead and we're going to watch another Doctor Strange movie.
Boy.
Doctor Strange, in quotes. Well, I can assure you it is better. And if you don't think it's better, then I really apologize for overselling it. But we're going to be watching Full Moon Pictures' Dr. Mordred. And this movie's gotten a little bit of buzz. I think even the Red Letter Media guys talked about it some in their review of Doctor Strange. So I think it's gotten some traction lately. But
we'll see how it is.
I love all things Full Moon. I love Puppet Master and Doll Man and Castle Freak. Robot. Crash and Burn, Robot Wars, all that stuff. I just absolutely cannot get enough of it. Imagine if, to put that sort of stuff in perspective, because I don't really think you've hardly ever watched any of it, Jared, but imagine if the Asylum was making movies with competent special effects and cool stop motion and costume stuff,
Well, that's where Greg Nicotero did most of his work. The guy who's over The Walking Dead right now was for Full Moon back in the day. He was really... in the early 90s, Nicotero did most of his work, after Romero and all that. After they were done making movies, that's where he spent most of his time at Full Moon. So, pretty cool, actually. A lot of really experimental prosthesis stuff going on.
Really cool creature effects. And, do you remember you remember watching Prehysteria? The movies about the miniature dinosaurs?
I think so.
That was them. That was
okay.
I think it was, they had a children's film subsidiary called Moonbeam. And that was so it's all them. But
that makes sense.
Yeah, crazy guy named Charles Band, great entrepreneur. But we're gonna watch that, and you'll get some opinion on it from me as a longtime fan, and Jared, who's seeing it for the first time.
Very first time. All right, guys. This has been Jared.
This has been Brandon.
We'll catch you in a little bit.
In a bit.
Later. right, guys, we are back. We just got done watching the full moon classic, Dr. Mordrid.
Dr. Mordrid. And it didn't take us 3 tries to get through all of it it did with Doctor Strange. So,
yeah.
Well, Jared, as this is the first time you ever watched it, what did you think?
I really enjoyed it. I thought Dr. Mordrid was really good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was a good movie.
Love Dr. Mordrid. It's a perfect piece of the past to me. Like it's straight up. I remember renting so many of those old full moon movies from the video store when I was a kid. Some of that stuff I probably shouldn't have been seeing when I was a kid. But so it takes me right back. I never did see that one. I was fairly well grown until I saw that. Actually, it wasn't until I saw a piece about it in Wizard magazine. Actually, probably when we were freshmen, sophomores in high school, something like that. So I saw it probably when I was about 16, 17.
We should probably go over the interesting history of the movie. Apparently, Full Moon Studios, they had been a really big force for kind of an independent, movie making source in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah. And, Charles Band had done a lot of really cool work on a lot of big cult films. He had worked on Reanimator. He'd worked on Troll. Mm-hmm. And then after leading off that success, he started his own company, Full Moon, which became very big in the rental industry, especially. So
that's where they thrived. Yeah.
These films were all effectively direct to video, but it was a little more complicated back then. A lot of these had small theatrical runs in major cities. They'd play in New York, Los Angeles, Chicago.
Yeah, a lot of foreign markets
for just a short while, and then they would, you'd never see them at Regency Cinema 8 in London, Kentucky, or Fugit Cinema in Hazard, or something like that.
At the time.
Yeah.
So basically, they thought they had gotten this big break. They had, I suppose, they did acquire the rights to Doctor Strange from Marvel.
Yeah.
And they thought this was going to kind of be their opportunity, to do something a little more high class,
legitimate
scale.
film. Yeah. And then, as the story goes, it's one of those things. This has been told for decades now. I guess
this is an old tale.
Who knows? One of these days somebody may come out and say, "Oh, that's actually not true at all."
Right.
But so the legend goes, they had the rights to Doctor Strange. They had, the film was ready to roll, and just as it was prepared to go into production, Marvel stepped in, and I don't know if it was a timing thing or a money thing, and they lost the rights to the character. So rather than scrap the production, because I'm money had obviously already been spent on it, they decided to go in and just change the script. Not that much,
right?
Either,
right.
As it turns out.
Well, it's important to talk just a little bit about how Marvel, at this time in history, had a habit of doing this. This was right around the time when the 90s come in. They were finally starting to try to get control back of a bunch of their properties. And, they, like we had mentioned previously, they had leased out, a bunch of different rights to all sorts of little companies. And, Full Moon, which is kind of a lower class, smaller studio, not diminishing their work or anything, but they just weren't, one of the major studios.
Not a headline studio.
That was, that was definitely not a very...
prestigious.
Yeah, the group to be leasing out the rights to anything for. And so just like that, they were trying to wrestle away any way they could legally to get all this stuff back and repackage it and sell it to major studios.
They it was at this time, of course, I suppose Canon had disbanded by this point, but I believe Spider-Man's rights were still at 21st Century Films, which was sort of a spiritual continuation of canon. They had done the Captain America film, which didn't help the case for Marvel for anybody. So they were reclaiming these rights and coming off the reception of films like Captain America 91 and The Punisher 89. This is also around the same time that Fantastic Four was in production, and we all know the history of that. By the way, if you haven't seen it, definitely get online and stream Doomed, the documentary.
What a terrific documentary. Man, I really enjoyed it. They really went all out.
Yeah, exactly the kind of production I like to see. But check that out if you get a chance. It's in the same vein as what we're talking about. So Marvel stepped in, took the rights away. Band did his absolute best to retool the film and deliver something quasi-original. It's funny, you could probably never get away with doing something that close today. If somebody... If a new Dr. Mordred were to come out, we talked about this with we talked about this in the intro. Full Moon kind of is like the Asylum, because you have things like Puppet Master and Demonic Toys playing off the success of franchises like Child's Play, for instance. So, very much not exactly mockbusters, but something kind of similar to that. The movie itself, very solid. It has your issues with films of this production caliber. There's some very goofy performances. There's some quaint, I guess is the best word to say, special effects. But that stuff is good in its own right. So, what was your big takeaway? What was your favorite thing about?
Well, definitely my favorite thing about the movie is Jeffrey Combs.
Well, yeah, of course.
Really loved him, and most of the performers were very good. Mm-hmm. I really got a big kick out of his performance. Jeffrey Combs has kind of a funny charm about him. He's kind of a weird quirk, himself, and he just has this way about him. I really enjoyed his performance as Doctor Strange. I thought it was really fun and confident, and I enjoyed the fun of the movie because it was really a lot of fun, and that's the word I'm going to keep using to describe it. It had some terrific little beats in it, where he uses his magic, and the thing about the dinosaurs was just tremendous. I loved the stop motion dinosaurs, and I liked the goofy villain and stuff like Cabal. That was really neat. Probably supposed to be Baron Mordo.
Oh yeah, obviously it's supposed to be Mordo.
Yeah, so
sure. This movie's got a real Eye of Agamotto in it.
Yeah, it really does.
Unlike
a real Eye of Agamotto, they can't call it that. But
but that's clearly what it's supposed to be.
What about you? What's your favorite thing about this movie?
I love Gutter, his buddy in the other dimension. The old knight who's got his eyes put out at the beginning.
He cursed every other breath.
I mean, that's Combs is my favorite thing too, for sure. Which we love Combs, but like my pet little favorite thing, if Jared's is the dinosaurs, mine's Gutter. That's what I really like about the movie.
As for an issue that I take with the movie, and this is probably my biggest strike against it, is I don't understand why there had to be some of the vulgar content in the movie that there was. And I know that was probably a full moon thing because, it's like Trauma or any of these other studios. It's kind of expected that you're going to throw cursing and, nudity in there. And I just don't think it had any place in this movie. I'll be honest with you. This honestly, I could have seen this movie pretty easily being PG
if they hadn't.
Like this should have been a fairly fun, almost like one of those Moonbeam, like kids movies they did. Like this could have been that. And I think that they got too carried away trying to appeal to this whole other group. They should have been trying to appeal younger.
Yeah.
I just thought it was out of place. There is some content issues, and I'm usually not, like that puritanical about that sort of stuff. But this time I just thought, if this is really what they were going to do with Doctor Strange, it's no wonder Marvel really didn't want them to do it.
And it does kind of make me doubt. You do have to think that maybe after they lost the rights, because that stuff seems almost tacked on, like it maybe wasn't there in the first place.
It seems like it, and one can only imagine. But really, there is no reliable source online to figure out what changed. And what didn't
exactly.
Because I've tried.
There's no complete original script or anything anywhere. Again, this is all hearsay. For all we know, there's not a complete script, of it as a Doctor Strange
film. I will
film.
say this: I feel like it has been trumped up quite a bit about how close they were to going into production on Doctor Strange. I think it's more than likely they had a basic outline of a Doctor Strange movie and already had their casting in place, and then they said, well, it's not going to work out, it's not such a big deal, we probably weren't going to stick too closely to that anyway. That's personally what I think happened, but who knows. I would really like to hear more about it from the actual people involved, band and everybody else.
There's a commentary on the new Blu-ray, so we'll have to definitely check that out.
If we listen to it, maybe we'll know.
We might get a little bit more. Although I'm sure if they said anything, it would have won up online by now. So.
Well, I think they're also going to be pretty careful about what they say.
Yeah,
because they don't want to get sued.
They don't
want to release.
Yeah, they don't want. I'm sure that nobody wants this to appear to be the lost Doctor Strange movie.
Right.
That would not be in their best interest legally.
What about you? What do you think is a major shortcoming of the movie, or a minor shortcoming?
Well, I feel like it loses something. Just some of the placement. I think that it loses a little bit of its mystical quality. You have things like the villain Cabal. It's got that like attaché briefcase that he carries around, Just, a little
his introduction was pretty poor.
Yeah,
with the sunglasses and all that. That really hurt.
Little set dressing pieces like that. Really, all
and symptoms of a low budget.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly. I would have liked for him to just magically generate those things, out of nowhere. But in general, I don't. Except for just some of the general sort of budgetary things and performance issues, and like Jared said, pretty much everybody in it is very good. It's just a little, supporting players here and there kind of leave a little bit to be desired. The music is also a little stiff. It's so Elfman, Batman '89, and Darkman.
Well, and those parts are actually pretty good in the music. The problems I had were when it got really synthy.
Yeah.
And it has that cheap, like synth instrument sound.
Lazy synth sound is what it is.
Lord, if you could have just filled that thing with quality orchestral, like even stock music, it really would have helped the movie.
Yeah.
But honestly, all that pales in comparison for me to the biggest constructural shortcoming of the movie. And to me, that's everything in the police station. Like all of that. I mean, it's a lot of that's great. Like I really enjoy a lot of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
that's probably when Combs' performance is the best. Is when he's telling the story.
I love all that stuff. But the problem is that they spend way too long there.
Yeah.
And it probably needed like one extra action beat of Combs as Dr. Mordred instead of Doctor Strange. But it probably needed one extra like action beat. But at the same time, you have to take a couple of things into consideration. Number one, they spent all their money, clearly on just the things
the
that
museum
they did
scene,
and so they really couldn't do that. But there is a kind of it brings a sort of cheapness into it and almost like a telefilm feel to it. Which it's funny because there's one of those commercial break like transitions during the police station part, and so that makes it hit home even more that it's doing the TV pacing thing. So I had just a brief flashback, the briefest of flashbacks to the Doctor Strange
78
TV film. Which it's important to note that this movie come out like 14 years after the Doctor Strange telefilm.
Yeah.
Now, as you can see from the pictures I'm putting up on screen right now, that. It seems like these two productions are worlds apart.
But not
worlds apart, but not really.
There was only 14 years in between the production of these two films, but it's been 25 years since Dr. Mordrid came out.
Exactly. So, I mean, it's kind of an unbelievable thing to think that they were that close, and also to think that there were two totally separate, independent attempts to bring Doctor Strange to the screen in that time period. And yet, Spider-Man, they were fighting about bringing him to the screen, but I think that this is one of those things that sort of slipped under the radar because Marvel didn't care as much about Doctor Strange, whereas with Spider-Man, it was they were gonna die before anybody squandered the property.
Well, even like now, I mean, not that there are some big name characters that still haven't gotten films, but you kind of see how long it took them even to get to them in the cinematic universe continuity. So
which I don't mean to say it got through the cracks, because clearly Marvel wrestled the rights away from them. Yeah. But I'm saying that at least an idea, a conceptual film.
At that point, I'm sure that it was on nobody's radar at Marvel proper. What could we do with Doctor Strange? If we wanted to.
Which, by the way, I just want to take this time to say that Marvel, in retrospect, was absolutely right to guard those Spider-Man rights and get into court battles and fight people about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And, be upset because you think about this. They saved Spider-Man from having an embarrassing, low budget feature that he would still, the character would still be ridiculed for it today.
For that very reason.
Because they sort of anticipated this culture on the internet, which guys like us, digging up these relics. It's not anything wrong, but if it's out there, it's fun to educate yourself on this stuff. And a lot of it, like 78 Doctor Strange, it's an embarrassment. To
really
the character.
is,
That's an embarrassment. Now, Dr. Mordred, I would not say is an embarrassment. But like I said, I can't emphasize enough that they missed the boat in terms of the content and things like that. Not at all a children's movie at all, unfortunately, because I think it could be. But
like you said, with really fairly minimal editing, it could be.
With just take out a couple scenes and a few words, and you've got a pretty good children's adventure film. But it's really sad that it can't be. It limits the audience of the movie. And for as much as I appreciate studios like Full Moon and all that, I always feel like they kind of back themselves into a corner with their content decisions, to whereas I think a lot more people would be able to discover them, kids in particular, which are the ones that should be inspired by this stuff, if they would kind of step back a little bit and get off their content a little bit and kind of open it up for bigger
there needs
audience.
to be. It's funny because they, unlike say Troma, which Troma did a couple of kind of kids movie. Did you know that Troma distributed My Neighbor Totoro in the U.S. for its initial theatrical release?
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's
no joke.
crazy.
Yeah. So there's funny little instances like that, but it was all or nothing. It had to be either a super kids movie like Prehysteria, or it had to be
XXX.
a hard R. Super. These films weren't rated, because they didn't get distributions. So this is a not rated film. probably would have had a difficult time getting an R rating with some of the stuff they wound up putting in it. So there, that's what there's these modern studios are do best. They your Warner Brothers DC films and your Marvel Studios films, they make these movies that are just heavy enough. Civil War is just heavy enough, dramatically and in terms of content and language and stuff like that it doesn't seem childish and unrealistic, but it's not dark enough. It's not in any way heavy enough to completely take kids out of the equation.
I think Kevin Feige is really in touch with what American standards are for their children. Like, he's really in touch with like what a parent would be willing to show their kid or not show their kid, and also in touch enough with a comic book fan, an adult comic book fan, to say, okay, well, they'll think this is too childish. We have to grit this up, here. So he has a really good middle of the road approach on that, and it's so even keeled. And I know a lot of people, accuse Marvel films of being too even keeled, but and some of that's true. You look at Logan or something like that, and it kind of teaches you, they really don't take many chances, do they? But it works.
It does, I mean, that's where the money's at right now. So until that
it's a great business model.
Until that starts to fail financially, they're not going to be doing anything besides that. That we'll never see a Marvel Studios Logan.
Right, never,
for as long as they're going, as long as they're in power.
The other thing I was going to point out about Dr. Mordred that I really enjoyed was the set design. And with Full Moon, it's like any of these other small studios. Of course, like Corman, they're going to reuse, everything from movie to movie. So I have no idea what's been redressed or remade or redone, or if it's all original construction or what it is. But I really, really, really liked Dr. Mordred's lair.
Yeah,
I thought that it was really nice. Of course, it's supposed to be, Sanctorum. But
I love the idea that the Sanctum is like an apartment building, and he has like the penthouse where he conducts all of his magic stuff, and he like rents the other rooms.
He has all these goofy neighbors.
Yeah, these goofy TV character neighbors.
Dr. Mordred is going to make a buck. No matter if he saves the world or not, he's going to make some money. So at least that's going to go well for him, even if everybody else is dead.
Yeah. So I dig that idea, and that adds some charm to it.
I like that. Yeah, it was fun. I actually liked all that stuff with the neighbors and everything.
Yeah.
Here's what I wish. I wish that there was way more of that in the front end and less of the stuff where he's at the police station just sitting there and and he's begging people, you gotta believe me. That's one trope that always kind of that I don't like in movies very much. Anytime anybody gets arrested, like a supernatural character or something, goes to the police station and sits there and gets cross-examined by detectives, I just don't like it.
Ghostbusters 2 is the ultimate example. Yeah.
And that's when Ghostbusters 2 starts to fall apart a little bit. And I really love Ghostbusters 2.
Yeah,
I'm the first to admit that that's when the movie starts to fall apart a little bit. When it's like, oh, they're just going for the tropes of the first movie. So anytime I see that, I just have a natural predilection to be like,
a little bit of a groan.
A little bit of a groan. I have a few things like that I just don't like to crop up. But overall, I really did enjoy Dr. Mordred.
I would really
a solid little movie. And
if you're an adult, comic book aficionado, if you want something just interesting, something different into the rotation, give this a watch.
Give it a watch.
Again, it's not for kids.
Not at all. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say about that. Really unfortunate. But yeah, overall, really interesting. So I guess Doctor Strange 1978 TV movie versus Dr. Mordred 1992 Full Moon feature. Dr. Mordred wins by far.
You've got an unprecedented landslide.
You've got Doctor Strange 78 is at best a 1.5 to 2 star production. At best,
out of 10.
2. Out of 10. There you go. Whereas Mordred is a solid 3 out of 5.
That's a good 3.5.
It's pretty solid. It's all right if you watch it on the right day and have the right.
I'll tell you what. One of the other things that helps it is it's very brief. It's only 75 minutes long.
Thank the Lord. So. That's something that Doctor Strange 78 really could have benefited from, and that was what I was going to say a minute ago, and I got off track a little bit. But when you see the ending and you're like, oh, there's not been a tremendous amount of Mordred running around in his cape and all that, you kind of forgive it because the movie's short.
Yeah.
And it's so short that a little bit of Dr. Mordred
goes
adventure
a long way.
Yeah, it really does, So it's not bad. It's not bad. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. You have anything else you want to add, Brandon?
Not in particular. Just I would also just give a general recommendation to Full Moon Productions in general. They're doing some neat modern stuff. I like the Ginger Dead Man stuff too.
Well, I'm all for any kind of modern experimental stuff like that.
Yeah. The big one that I didn't mention before is Trancers. Trancers actually is probably my favorite Full Moon franchise with Tim Thomerson. So give those a watch. It's sort of again in the vein of the mockbusters. It's sort of a poor man's Terminator, and it's so good and it's so like perfectly 80s. You give those a chance, you'll really love them.
I would ask anybody who's watching if you guys have any suggestions for another obscure comic book movie you want to hear from us about. Chances are we've seen it 10 times or whatever, and we've analyzed it and all that. I don't know. We've been thinking about doing a Captain America episode here pretty soon. I will probably hardly talk much about the awful first telefilm. Probably skip right to Death Too Soon versus Captain America 90.
Yeah.
And that'll be an interesting fight.
We'll sort of address the two telefilms as one project.
Yeah,
because they really are.
That will be interesting because each of them will have merits.
Yeah, that and I kind of would like to do Fantastic Four, but at the same time,
it's been done
to death.
Yeah, pretty heavily. So
I don't know.
I'd still like. How about this? Tim Story Fantastic Four movies versus the Corman Fantastic Four.
Well, and there's an interesting, and I don't want to give away our whole shtick, but we have a very strong opinion about a connection between not just those, but even Fantastic Four 2015.
Yeah.
So. Well, that's something we
I want to
discuss.
analyze all that and break that down. But please let us know in the comments below. The only way that we know what you like is to see your comments. So we would really like to see what you're interested in. Tell us what you liked or didn't like about this episode. Give us some constructive criticisms.
We would sure appreciate it.
Yeah.
And, we never want to say, well, we'll try to get some stuff done again soon. But we know it'll be 2 or 3 months before we get anything
it'll be a while. But, hey, you never know.
It'll be good when it comes around. So.
Exactly. It'll be worth it.
Folks, until then. Take care of yourself and each other.
That's right.
And enjoy and keep on being a fan because, sometimes you need those little things in life to get by.
All right, guys. This has been Jerry.
And this has been Brandon.
God bless. Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.